All right. So I want to kind of go over my ABI Season 3 and beyond wish list as far as some things that I think that the game would really benefit from, help keep the game kind of fair and fresh for new players. Um, and I think it would just give a better experience overall. Again, this is my opinion. This isn't the gospel. This isn't anything that, can't be tweaked, and I'm open to hearing your suggestions as well, whether or not you think, some of my ideas are good, bad, what could be changed, if you have your own outlook as far as what you're expecting from the game and what you'd like the developers to change or implement with the current system and how things work. But with that being said, the first thing, and I think this is a very hot topic, is gear restriction. So obviously we have the Steam release and Epic release coming up on the 15th of September. That's the full release of the game. So the hope is that we're going to have a flood of new players coming in. Player count's going to go up. It's going to stay healthy. And I think one of the main things that the game would really benefit from would be something that Delta Force also implemented, that I really believe when I was still playing that game that it did help out, especially with, new player retention. But basically what I'm talking about is when you go into your either, tactical ops, normal, lockdown, forbidden, and then you have your solo ops. I really feel like for normal, the gear requirement should be maximum tier 3. You can run naked if you want to. There's no minimum requirement because it's normal. You should only be able to bring in up to probably tier 4 ammo, which that might be kind of tweakable depending on the weapon. But at least tier 3 and below. I was thinking maybe tier 4, but really I think tier 3 would be a good spot. Because again, it's normal for me, in my opinion, is really meant for people who are new to the game, or they just want a little bit more relaxed, like chill experience where it's not like super high risk. They're not going to lose a ton that's going to break their bank, and they kind of just gear up with quick kits and whatever and enjoy that mode and learn at least a couple of the maps and kind of get them prepared and a little bit more comfortable for lockdown. So then you go into lockdown, and my sweet spot for that one, I think, would probably be minimum tier 4 gear, maximum is tier 5, so we're not even into tier 6, and you cannot bring in anything that's tier 6 or above. So tier 6 ammo, tier 6 armor, tier 6, equipment like, say, thermal scopes and thermal actual, imagers and stuff like that. The attachment for the helmets, you can't bring that in lockdown. And on top of that, you have a minimum Cohen requirement and a maximum. So you can't go like super crazy, like, with the weapon builds. I mean, have it enough to where it's enough play to have like your gun builds be good and everything, but maybe not like the best. I think for the most part with the gear restrictions, they can even be a little bit more lenient on that and maybe not have like a maximum Cohen requirement as well, as long as they're limiting and restricting the use completely of certain things like the tier 6 armors and the thermals and all that stuff. So that's something that could kind of be tweaked, but tier 4 minimum, tier 5 maximum, and then you have to have at least at minimum to queue in, even if you're by yourself, you have to be wearing a tier 4 armor. Maybe not a helmet, maybe not a chest rig or a backpack or anything like that, but you at least have to have a tier 4 armor equipped, and you have to have at least a primary weapon of some sort equipped. So those two things are requirements. You can't just go in there with a knife or with a pistol. You have to have armor equipped and a primary weapon. Reason being is, I know even myself, I like to do like the 0 to hero runs, or like kind of like these little challenges and stuff like that. While that's fun and it's something that people like to watch to a certain extent, I really feel like the game overall would benefit keeping that to a normal mode thing as opposed to taking it into lockdown and forbidden. And it will also help minimize, you know, the naked Mosin, naked SJ, SVTU, all that stuff with the red ammo. So I think overall that will be a much better experience for the game in the long run and for players. And then obviously again to Forbidden. So Forbidden, no holds barred. You can bring in thermals, tier 6, tier 7, whatever. There's a minimum Cohen requirement. Probably boost that up from where it's at now, which I think it sits at like 400,000 Cohen, which is like nothing. Maybe make that actually closer to like 700,000 or 800,000. Shoot, maybe even a mil requirement, because you have to think Forbidden is supposed to be the mode that gets you like the highest chance for like the best loot, and it's like the end-all be-all mode, and it's supposed to be that like that's like the ultimate experience, right? Like that's like the end game or whatever is Forbidden. And you know, some people don't like to play Forbidden. I don't play a ton of Forbidden myself. I'm trying to get myself more comfortable and get more of my actual liquid money, like stash value and everything up there, so I can run the better kits to be in Forbidden and not doing the naked modes and stuff like we were just talking about, because I hate that with a passion. But you know, not everything necessarily has to be for everyone, right? That's why they have the different modes to play what you're comfortable with. You also have the Covert Ops mode, which is like your scav. You have your Team Deathmatch and your Arsenal mode, and you have your Solo Ops mode. So, I mean, there's different things for different people. So, not everything has to be for everyone, and I think that's where people get kind of caught up is, oh, everyone should be able to play everything, and you know, it's everyone's always on the equal playing field. Well, you're not going to be, because there's people that are just going to be better at the game in general, you know? So, anyway, so Forbidden has no maximum requirement. Minimum Cohen is boosted up, and, yeah, basically, that's like the pinnacle. But you can only bring in minimum of tier 5 armor. They're not running tier 4. And then obviously tier 6, and if they come out with anything above that. But so tier 5, tier 6, and you have to have armor equipped, helmet equipped, and a primary weapon. Now again, you may say, well, why are you forcing people to wear a helmet? Well, because it's forbidden. So technically forbidden, you should be coming in with the mindset of giving yourself the best chance of survival, right? Which would be wearing a helmet that's going to block some sort of bullet potentially, right? Now, again, that can be tweaked. If a lot of people are like, no, you shouldn't force a helmet or whatever, then so be it. Things can be changed, but that's my stance on it right now. Now, some people might argue, well, yeah, you can force them to wear armor. What happens if they just go and wear, like, the a super worn down one that can't be sold, whatever. Yes, you're still going to run into those situations, but overall, I think it's going to make the game basically you'll have a better experience overall. You may not always have the best experience because there's that, but I think it would help a lot. Now, to combat the selling of the worn gear that they can bring in and make it, you know, to where it's not worthless, which they may already do this, I'm not sure, but when it's in that well-worn state, it should be only well worn to the point to where if it gets completely zeroed out and it gets repaired, that it can still be sold that time. So it'll have enough durability left on it to be sold back. And then obviously the next time if you bring it in and it gets zeroed out, well then you can't sell it anymore other than to, you know, the contact for a reduced price or whatever. Now obviously they're gonna have the in-game repair stations and stuff where you can repair in raid. So again, if somebody repairs it in raid and then it gets shot up and damaged again and you go to sell it and you can't, again, it's not perfect, but I think it's gonna be better. And also what they could do is maybe boost the price for what it would sell for in that state to the contact, so that way it's not as punishing to where it's like, oh, if I was able to sell this tier 6, I would have gotten at least like 150 or 200,000 for it, but now I'm getting like 10,000. Maybe make it to where it's like, oh, you can at least sell it to the contact for like 80 or 100,000 or something like that, so you're getting something out of it. Anyway, that would be my biggest ask for ABI, because I think that would just make everything better for people overall. So obviously let me know down in the comments what you think on that one. Another one that I can ask for this, but they already stated they're not wiping the game, and a lot of people would be against it, but I would have liked them to wiped the game one time for the full release, and here's why. They're making major changes, right? They're taking tier 6 armor off of the market, certain ones I believe, to make it to where they're only like craftable, or maybe you can find them in raid. The selling of the, you know, tier 7 ammo and the thermal imagers. You can still buy the scope, but not the actual attachment for the helmet. So those are major changes, and the other big one is that they're no longer allowing you to basically buy in-game currency with real money. So a lot of people are going to say, well, what about the people who paid the money and they they bought this and did that, and now they want compensation because they spent real money. So what they do is they just take the stash, they liquidate the stash, give them the highest price that those items had hit on the market. So whatever the highest price was during the lifespan of the game up to that time, whatever the highest selling point was, they give them that amount for what's being sold. And the only thing that's being wiped is the stash. So they can keep the player levels, they can keep their stats, they can keep all that stuff. The only thing that's basically being reset down is the stash itself. I think that would start everybody more on a level playing field, so that you don't have people stacked up with a bunch of saved up, you know, red ammo and thermals and this and that, whatever. So yes, they're still going to have a boatload of money, and there's people in the game that have boatloads of money, so yes, they can just go and buy their allotted amount of things, but that's going to happen anyway, and I think it would just even things out a lot more, and give the game, you know, at least one fresh start. And then after that point, don't wipe stuff, just let it go. And, you know, the only thing they have to worry about is inflation with the economy, which is what we're kind of running into now. Which brings me to my next point. Since the economy is already controlled by the bots, right? So they reset the prices at certain times during the day, and, you know, bring things back down for a little bit, but then everything kind of skyrockets back up. So one of the things that I was thinking about that may work for that is that they have a set price, base price for each item in the game, and then they have a set range of what that price can be listed for, up to a certain amount. So let's say something's, you know, base price is 80,000. Well, the maximum it can go up to is maybe like 120,000. And then anything past that, basically, you might still be able to list it for more, but then the tax that they take out of it on the market is so punishing that it doesn't make sense to do it. So they could do it that way, or they could just hard cap it and say, no, you can list it for this range to this range, and if you try to go above this, it's just like, nope, you can't. And people are like, well, that sucks, blah, blah, you don't want to do that, the player economy, it's not really a player economy because the bots are controlling prices to a certain extent. It's like, yes, you'll have periods where things skyrocket, and you can make more money on it before it gets reset down, but again, this is looking at the overall health and longevity of the game, as opposed to, oh, certain people can just make a boatload of money and benefit from this because they know the reset times and are there to hit stuff as soon as it gets reset and reselling and doing all that stuff. So, again, that's just an idea, something to throw out there that they could use, they can tweak it. Again, obviously looking for opinions and what people think of that, but that's my thought process with the economy side to help the inflation. They already said that they're getting away from like the hardcore side of this, so it's more or less like a tactical extraction shooter, which is good because I don't think they need to be like Tarkov, because Tarkov is Tarkov, and it's going to be hard for anyone to ever really fill that like super hardcore niche that Tarkov has. I also don't want them to go too arcadey with it, and I think right now they're kind of in like a pretty good balance of that. So they're doing good on that. What I would like them to do too, though, is if they're not doing wipes, they need to bring in some sort of prestige option to where you can optionally reset your account and you get some kind of like cosmetic rewards, maybe give people like the extended amount that you can sell stuff on the market, so more listings, you know, maybe give them like the larger keychain or something for like 15 days or 30 days like the first time. Just kind of do stuff like that every time you prestige, you know, award people those premium like gear sets for doing stuff like that, you know, just have different things like that. It doesn't have to be anything that's super game changing or, you know, crazy, but, you know, give them the different player cards, give them, you know, different badges, things like that, weapon skins, you know, obviously keeping to the more realism side and not Call of Duty where you're shooting like turkeys out of the barrel of your gun and it's, you know, all this other craziness. But I think a prestige mode is very much needed to kind of also control the inflation of the economy and stuff like that too. And it gives players something to work towards as well, so that's always good. And getting things for free and not having to pay money for it, like they're doing with the larger secure case with the next season, where if you complete all 60 missions, you get that case for free, then okay, cool. It gives the free-to-play people something to work for and an actual reward for doing it. So anytime that you're doing stuff like that, I think that's a win overall. Something else I would like them to bring in is whenever you set your preferred sight, so when you're going through and changing like the reticle from like the X or the dot and stuff like that, is if they could have a setting to where it's like you could set that to where it automatically starts on that setting and you don't have to cycle through it. Maybe if you die and you have to put the sight back on it or something, then you do it like the one time, but having to do that every single raid is just annoying. So it'd be nice if they had some kind of setting in there for that to just have like a default type thing. That's kind of just a me thing. Like, it's nothing huge. If it doesn't happen, it's not a big deal, but I think it would be nice, like a little quality of life life thing for the game. But I think those were my major points There is one other thing that I would like them to do that I can think of at the top of my head, is the quick kits. I think the quick kits, the base level, is fine for normal. I think they're in a good spot just for running normal. Obviously, you shouldn't be able to take a quick kit into a Forbidden Zone, the base one, or Lockdown. So I think the base level should be for normal. The advanced should be geared towards Lockdown, and they would have to adjust those. And then the premium one, the gold one or whatever, that one should be geared for Forbidden. And you should actually have it locked to those specific modes, and they should be geared for those modes specifically. And they need to give them out a little bit more frequent. I think every week, what would be nice, especially for new players, so they can at least experience something and not have to, you know, break their bank to at least try the mode. Give like 10 for normal. Give like maybe 5 or 6 for Lockdown, and then give like 3 or 4 for Forbidden. Because that allows people to go in and learn the map and experience those modes and kind of play them and see if it's something they want to do, or if they want to stay with Lockdown or normal or whatever. And at least they can try it every week and be like, okay, I tried it, still not feeling it, come back, I have another shot next week once I burn through these things. So I think those should be adjusted and kind of awarded each week. Maybe you have to do like a couple things to get them, so like those little like base things of like, oh, extract like 2 or 3 times from like any mode, and it's like, oh, you get these things that you can use for these modes to try out. Which brings me to, I think, my final points, unless I think of anything else off the top of my head, but with the new players coming in and, you know, hopefully having a higher player base, so you don't need all of these like player bots and everything. I really think they should either add another map that's just like a normal and Lockdown option, or they should either open up all of the maps to normal, or have it to where like Farm and Valley are always your normal and Lockdown, and then obviously Farm has Forbidden. But put like Armory, TV Station, and Northridge on a rotation. Like maybe every like 2 hours, it'll rotate to a new map to where it's like, oh, this is open for normal, and obviously have the adjusted loot tables and all that stuff. But at least that gives people the ability to try the map and learn it, and not have such, you know, high requirements to do that. Or do something that Tarkov did and implement an offline mode to where nothing that you do in that raid you get to keep. It doesn't track progression or anything like that, but you can literally queue up, go in, and you can run around the map and obviously have like the AI scabs on there and stuff, but give people the opportunity to learn the map without having to necessarily risk anything. So one of those two options, they would probably lean more towards, I think, the normal rotation, or just opening up the maps to normal as opposed to the offline mode, which I would be okay with that option too. Which leads me into one other minor point that I want to make, and it has to do with the AI. I really feel like they should tweak the AI. So like how the AI performs in pretty much every mode is almost exactly the same, unless you encounter like the boss and the boss bodyguards. And even then, for the most part, they're not usually anything crazy unless you're caught off guard or something. I think normal, they should behave kind of like how they do now, where it's like, yeah, they're not really going to hit you very much, or if they do, they're not, you know, they're not a threat, right? Because new players learn the game, whatever, less stress. Once you get into Lockdown, I really feel like they need to perform a little bit more tactical and be a little bit more, you know, I don't know, difficult, I guess is the best way to put it, because they're still pretty much a non-threat. The only thing they really do is give your position away for the most part, and then sometimes they'll black out a limb or something, unless it's the boss. So I think they need to be tuned up a little bit, and then obviously Forbidden, like, they should be actually something that you have to pay attention to, and maybe even put more of them on the map, to where it's like, okay, like if you're going to try to go into Armory, like maybe you have to fight through like a small squadron of like the souped up, you know, bodyguards or something to get in there, or maybe there's like a boss outside that's like guarding the switches that patrols or something. Just different stuff like that to give them an actual feeling of like threats, because right now they're basically they're there to give like your position away for the most part. Like that's how I feel about the AI. So they could probably do some tuning on that, which would be good. But overall, I feel like the game is moving in the right direction. This is just my thoughts that I've been talking to some of my friends with, and we've been playing through and kind of bringing these points up to, you know, things that we basically like to see or have them tweak just to put the game in a better spot, and put the game in a better spot not just for like the veteran players, the grinders, or the new players, but kind of balance it out overall to where you may have a little bit of give and take on things, but the overall experience for everyone should be, you know, a little bit better. But like I said, please voice your opinions in the comments. Let me know what you think. You know, put the stuff out there for the developers to, you know, take a look at, especially if you have your own thoughts on some things that you want, you know, added into the game or changed, whatever that looks like. Then obviously, if you do like the content, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and I will see y'all later. Peace.